the old saying goes, home is where the heart is. Or in my case, home is where all the people who saw me wet myself in year 7 are. Still can't show my face in the Ride Weatherspoons. Anyway, for most people, a homecoming is something to be celebrated, especially when you're a wrestler. Audiences love to cheer for their local heroes, even when they're not supposed to. See MJF and Long Island for reference. WWE may have gone through a weird phase of habitually booking people to lose in their hometowns, but that hasn't stopped some of the greatest wrestlers of all time from getting monster ovations when returning to their roots. Before we start, one honorable mention here, and it's a big un. Bad Bunny at Backlash 2023. We wanted to focus on proper full-time wrestlers in this list, but given the reaction Mr. Bunny received in Puerto Rico, not to mention the performance he put on, it would be a travesty not to mention him. Mad props. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 biggest hometown pops in WWE history. Join us! Number 10, Daniel Bryan on Raw. In the build-up to the match that would unify the WWE and World Heavyweight Championships, WWE decided to host a segment featuring some of the men who have held these historic belts. Unfortunately, they decided to host the segment in Seattle, Washington, during the height of Daniel Bryan's popularity. Bryan, who is from nearby Aberdeen, was one of the men in the ring while Triple H droned on about the importance of the upcoming match. Did the fans care? Did they balls? They just wanted to do the yes chant. Despite several attempts to shut the raucous audience down, including an ill-fated hand raise from Mark Henry, the Washington mob were not going to be stopped. They relentlessly cheered the underdog hero, bringing this entire segment to a standstill. It speaks to WWE's total ignorance of Bryan's popularity at the time that they would put him out in front of his hometown fans and expect them to stay quiet. The best part of this whole thing is D-Bry's own reactions. The American Dragon clearly loved every single second of this, openly smiling and laughing every time the crowd got behind him. Number 9, Ric Flair on Raw. At Survivor Series 2001, Team WWF defeated Team Alliance to win back control of the company and bring a close to one of the greatest storylines in the history of wrestling. Or at least it should have been one of the greatest storylines in the history of wrestling. Anyway, the next night on Raw, a victorious Vince McMahon was all set to strip Steve Austin of the world title and award it to Kurt Angle. Before this could pass though, he was interrupted by the sound of a rather familiar piece of music. Had Kevin Dunn accidentally hit play on the 2001 A Space Odyssey soundtrack? No. This was Ric Flair making his first WWE appearance in over 8 years in front of his hometown crowd of Charlotte, North Carolina. Though he wasn't actually born there, we all know that North Carolina has become somewhat of a second home for the Nature Boy. The state is regularly referred to as Flair Country, and Ric's daughter even took this city as her ring name when she joined the business. The fans went wild for their adopted son, welcoming him back to the Fed with open arms. As for Vince, well, let's just say he was less than thrilled. Number 8, John Cena at Survivor Series 2008. To call John Cena a divisive figure is like calling the Sky Blue, Water Wet, and his appearance in Fred the Movie a strange career choice. To young kids, he was a superhero with ungodly strength and determination. To anyone who no longer has their baby teeth, he was a despised corporate shill who was being pushed on them against their will. Years of "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks" chants proved that there remained a split opinion on the man, but his return to the ring in Boston, Massachusetts at Survivor Series 2008 proved that he did still have fans out there. Big Match John grew up in West Newbury, 34 miles north of Boston. Clearly there was enough hometown love in the air that night as the very high-pitched crowd overwhelmingly cheered for Cena when he beat Y2J. Although if you listen closely enough, you can hear the sounds of men in their 30s preparing what they were going to write online when they got home. Number 7, Edge at Unforgiven 2006. 2 years before his hometown crowd got behind him, John Cena was facing off against a man who was very much the local celebrity. Born in Orangeville, Ontario, Edge spent many of his younger years in the Toronto area of Canada. So when Unforgiven 2006 rolled into town and Edge was the WWE champion, you can imagine what sort of response he got. Even though he was the fiendish heel, Edge was still received like a hero upon his return to the Great White North. You can even hear the roar of the crowd over his incredibly loud entrance theme. Did WWE turn the theme music up or the crowd noise down? You decide. Sadly, this support did the Rated R superstar no favors, as CENA beat him to win back his beloved spinner belt. In fact, not only did he beat him, but he gave him an AA off a ladder through a stack of tables. Hopefully Edge was still registered at the local hospital, local medical facility. Ah well, at least he got a good reception, before he was flung about 10 feet to his demise. Number 6, Shawn Michaels at Royal Rumble 1997. Although he was billed from San Antonio, Texas, Shawn Michaels actually grew up in multiple different places. He was born in Arizona and even spent some time in the English town of Reading, which is a bit weird, isn't it? This was because his father was in the military, presumably taking down baddies with super kicks across the world. HBK did spend the majority of his youth in San Antonio, hence why it became his kayfabe home. This also meant that when he competed in the city at the 1997 Royal Rumble, the audience treated him like a god amongst men. Not only was Michaels the sole wrestler on the poster for this event, but his WWE Championship match with Psycho Sid actually main evented the show over the Rumble match itself. I'm sure Bret Hart was fine with that decision. In the end, this proved to be the right decision, as the crowd went bonkers for the showstopper's big win. Now, all that was left for him to do was have a rematch with the Hitman at WrestleMania 13 and drop the title back to him. Wait, what do you mean, lost his smile? What does that even mean? Number 5, TAZZ at Royal Rumble 2000. Royal Rumble 2000 wasn't just home to one of the best sets in pay-per-view history, but also featured a kick-ass debut from an ECW legend. Kurt Angle came out to issue an open challenge to anyone in the back. As the Madison Square Garden crowd watched on with bated breath, the sound of a HART monitor filled the air. Out came the recently signed TAZZ, former ECW champion, future commentary legend, and childhood resident of the Red Hook district of Brooklyn, New York. And before you New Yorkers come at us in the comments, we know that MSG is in a different borough. It's obviously in Staten Island. Everyone knows that. The human suplex machine emerged to a thunderous ovation from the crowd, despite the fact that everyone and their mother knew that he was going to be Angle's surprise opponent. The rabid fans kept the excitement level up for the whole match, which ended with Taz choking out the gold medalist to end his undefeated streak in emphatic fashion. And then Taz went on to have a great WWE in-ring career, winning multiple championships as Tazamania ran wild. At least, in my head he did. Number 4, Kurt Angle at Unforgiven 2001. The Olympic hero got his own dose of hometown glory when he challenged Stone Cold Steve Austin for the WWE Championship at Unforgiven 2001. We were deep into the Invasion storyline at this point, and Austin had been the top heel champion for the past 175 days. He might have reigned for even longer had a certain tragic world-changing event not taken place just 2 weeks earlier. The 9/11 terrorist attacks shocked the world and sent the USA into a state of uncertainty and fear. WWE wanted to create a feel-good moment to help the nation heal, and it just so happened that their upcoming pay-per-view was being held in the birthplace of one of their most patriotic characters. Unforgiven was emanating from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, close to where Angle was born. In the night's final match, Angle tapped Austin out to win the belt, to an enormous reaction from the city of brotherly love before celebrating with his assembled friends and family. A great homecoming for Angle, and a brief bit of respite in one of the bleakest periods of America's recent history. Number 3, Sami Zayn at Elimination Chamber 2023. WWE went through a weird phase in the 2010s of having stars lose big matches on home soil. It's almost as if the company was going against the idea of hometown support, which is baffling but not exactly out of character for Vince McMahon. Thankfully, WWE proved that they were still interested in pushing performers in front of their friends and neighbors, as we saw at the 2023 Elimination Chamber event. This was the night that saw the culmination of months of storyline between Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn. The scruffy-haired grappler had been taken on as an honorary member of the Bloodline, slowly winning over each individual member before eventually signing with Kevin Owens at the Royal Rumble. Zayn's involvement in this feud led to him getting massively over, Canada, and so when he was put in front of a crowd in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, the place went ballistic. The star was born in a suburb of Montreal, effectively making this a hometown crowd. They were at fever pitch throughout his world title match with Reigns, constantly on the edge over the thought that their boy could win the big one. He didn't, naturally, but sometimes it's the thought that counts. Number 2, the Hart Foundation at In Your House 16 Canadian Stampede. Staying north of the border as we travel back to 1997 and one of the best top-to-bottom WWE cards in history. The main event of Canadian Stampede was a massive match, and not just because it had 10 people in it. On one side was Stone Cold Steve Austin, Goldust, Ken Shamrock, and the Legion of Doom. As for the other team, that was comprised of Bret Hart, Owen Hart, Jim Neidhart, the British Bulldog, and Brian Pillman, aka the Hart Foundation. The Harts were essentially Canada personified at this point, despite being massive heels in the US. Take into consideration that this pay-per-view was coming from Calgary, Alberta, the hometown of Bret and Owen, and where their father Stu ran a successful wrestling promotion for many years, and the reaction was otherworldly. The crowd went nuclear when the Foundation made its entrance, and that energy didn't dissipate throughout the entire match. Seriously, there are points during this bout where the crowd are cheering so loudly you can see the cameras shaking. The Harts really are the first family of Canadian wrestling, and you only need to watch this match if you want proof. Number 1, CM Punk at Money in the Bank 2011. CM Punk versus John Cena from Money in the Bank 2011 got 5 stars from Dave Meltzer, and to be honest, at least 1.5 stars of that is because of the crowd. Here is the story. Punk challenges Cena for the belt, but his contract expires on the night of the show. Punk presents himself as the perfect anti-corporate hero, challenging everything Cena and the WWE at large stand for. Also, Money in the Bank is taking place in Chicago, CM Punk's birthplace, and a city where he is worshipped as a minor deity. All of this led to a monstrous ovation for the straight-edge superstar when he came out for his main event match. Not only would a win for Punk be a win for Chi-Town, but it would also be a win for everyone who was sick to death of WWE's PG nonsense. Put simply, the atmosphere at Money in the Bank was incredible, with the fans leaning into everything the match threw at them. Sometimes wrestling creates the perfect storm of time and place, and something magical happens as a result. And there was definitely some magic in the air on this night in the Windy City.